Tonight on Mississippi Insight, crime on the rise. Jackson, more than halfway to 100 homicides. Now officers will be getting a new tool, body cams. It's not just about transparency. Also, the three candidates running for Hinds County DA, how they plan to deal with the crime crisis. And the independent mayor, George Flags, tells us how he's working to turn around Vicksburg and how he's doing it his way. Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. We begin with the crime crisis. At least 2 more deadly shootings on the streets of Jackson as the city rolls out body cams. The new tools could be available as soon as next week. But the crime problem isn't just in the capital city. It's impacting the metro area. And there are several different approaches to dealing with it. I'm here with WJTV 12's Gerald Harris, and joining us is Jackson City Councilman Aaron Banks, and from Rankin County, the sheriff from the past 8 years, Brian Bailey. Well, Councilman Banks, let's talk about the body cam program rolled out this week. It's not just about transparency in cases of police shootings, but officers are responsible for turning on those cameras as well. Is there concern that they may not turn them on all the time?
Well, yeah, of course there's grave concern, but you know, these tools are going to be, you know, very good for police accountability. However, you know, the biggest concern is that we can't just receive tools to get our way out of the problem of crime. We have to, first of all, be able to compensate and pay our officers a livable wage, and for us to be the capital city, for officers starting off at $25,000, that's just not going to cut it.
And you're not just talking out of the side of your neck. You've been in this position, former police officer. Talk to us from that perspective and what officers face day to day. Well,
you know, officers, not only do they put their lives on the line, but, you know, officers have a whole lot of stress, and just financial stress, you know, the things that they go on with their own personal lives, you know, and to sometimes not feel like they're getting support from their capital city, you know, it's a sad thing. And, you know, I think that we have to do a better job as the legislative part of the body of the city of Jackson to begin to make sure, you know, that we are paying a livable wage to our police officers.
And Sheriff, you guys deal with dash cams in some of your patrol cars, is that correct?
Yes, the ones on patrol have the digital video cameras in their vehicles.
And how does that help or as a tool to fight crime? And do body cameras and dash cams make a difference?
Yeah, of course they make a difference. And of course we've been looking at body cameras, but you know, everybody, you know, wants to, a couple of years ago, everybody's saying, you know, get body cameras, but there's a whole lot more that you can go out and buy the camera, you know, right now, throw it on the officer. But the problem that you have is that for accountability, you have to make it where that officer can't stop the recording or can't delete a recording off of it. And we have the same problem with our in-car cameras, is that we have all this data that's collected. We can't delete it. And nobody at the sheriff's office can delete a video off a dash camera. So it's stored. Well, eventually, whatever you're storing is going to fill up. And my problem with right now, the body cameras is, I have 106 deputies. If all of them have a body camera on and it's recording, all this data's going down. Number one, who's going to pay to store it? I'm going to have to pay to store it. And when I need it for court, I'm going to have to hire somebody just to go back in and retrieve the data for court.
Mm-hmm. So that's the disadvantage of having the
right.
camera.
It's not so simple as buying a camera and using it. Yeah, it's a great idea. You know, we're eventually going to go to it, but we have to find the best solution for Rankin County for it.
Does it hold the officers or the public accountable if they know they're being recorded? Do you believe that to be the case?
I think it holds both more accountable. And actually, when the cameras first came out, I loved, when I was working narcotics, is when the cameras first came out, the little miniature cameras, and I loved video cameras, of course. When I, you know, of course, if you know you're being recorded, you're going to act a totally different way. Mm-hmm. But also you could, you know, read the rights. You could get a confession to a murder or a burglary or anything like that on that camera that could make or break the case right there in the heat of the moment when you first arrest somebody or interviewing somebody. So, I mean, I think it's a great tool for evidence. So, I mean, it's definitely something that's needed.
And I think you make an interesting point when you say who's going to pay for all of this. Mm-hmm. You know, we have 82 counties, I believe, 82 different departments, mm-hmm. things of that nature. Jackson has been fortunate to get match grants in many of those things, mm-hmm. but the financial cost, that's a big thing with many of these sheriff's departments.
Well, not only with the sheriff's office, but you look, you know, in Rankin County, we're blessed. You know, I have a decent budget. I have asset forfeiture money, which I buy a lot of things like that, the extra things with. But what I also would like to see is for law enforcement statewide to have a uniform SOP on these body cameras. Everybody go with the same SOP. Preferably, let's get some state and federal grant. Let's let the state and federal feds kick in. Let's have a statewide data storage and let the state keep up with it. With the video and buy the cameras for us. I think that'd be a great idea for everybody to be on the same page.
Councilman Banks, the city of Jackson is over 50 homicides right now. We're almost halfway through the year. You're proposing some new ideas to deal with fighting crime. What are some things you're looking at?
Yeah, I'm introducing an ordinance actually today at work session. And this ordinance, it basically is a mandatory sentence for parents. The first offense, if a juvenile, if a child, is caught in possession of a handgun or commits a crime with a handgun, then that parent or that guardian will face a mandatory 24 hours in jail and pay a mandatory $500 fine. And it goes up after the third offense. I think it's 72 hours mandatory in jail and $2,500 fine. Listen, when I was growing up, there was no such thing as locking the door in my house. My dad would actually come in and flip my mattresses, and I think that this is something to begin to have parents to begin to be nosy and helping to bring the accountability where the accountability should be.
And the problem is that the parents don't know what the kids are doing. Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely. I have 3 kids, that are in the house with me. I look at them on Instagram. I check them out on Facebook. And parents need to be involved in their children's life. Not just from the standpoint of when good things are going on, but we parents, have to do a better job with parenting. And I think that that's something legislatively that we can accomplish with this new ordinance.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll spend a few more minutes with our panel when we come back. And welcome back to Mississippi Insight. We're joined again by our panel. We have Councilman Aaron Banks and Sheriff Brian Bailey with the Rankin County, and of course WJTV 12's Gerald Harris.
And Councilman Banks, you just received some new information. Could you share that with us? And I think it's pretty pressing.
Yeah. Mississippi Crime Lab, they did a report basically talk about the state of Mississippi having, more murders per capita. We're somewhere around 400 murders within the state, but Jackson is responsible to 20 to 25%. That's almost like 1 out of every 4.5. And so we really have to, do all we can to invest, in law enforcement. As I always say, if you see something, you got to say something. And it's going to be very important that we do all we can. And not only are agencies working with each other, but again, we got to make sure that we are having a good deterrence. The only way you reduce crime, is by having a deterrence. The way you have a deterrence is visibility, because crime exists because there are opportunities that are out there. And, we're losing a lot of good men and women, with JPD, people that have been around for a long time, and we're losing them to neighboring cities, we're losing them, and we have to do a better job at having a very good pro-police atmosphere.
And a quick follow-up question, do you still have confidence in the police chief here in Jackson, Chief James Davis?
I do have confidence. I'm always have confidence in anyone that's a law enforcement. Do I think that there's some areas where there's room for improvement? But I think that any chief or any law enforcement professional needs to support, whether it's on the county level, they need to support the supervisors. And when we're talking about a municipality, they need the support of that administration. And let the chief be the chief. Chiefs don't do a good job being micromanaged by politicians. Let him be the chief and give him the authority to do. And it'll just be interesting to see that if he really had that scope of authority to be, the chief that I know he could be, what kind of change we would see.
Sheriff, when we talk about fighting crime, this summer, we know when summertime comes around, we tend to see more crime spike up when the kids are out of school and everything else was happening. What do you think are some of the solutions to deal with that? We've had recently a lot of drive-by shootings and innocent people being injured or killed. What can we do to deal with those issues?
You know, the councilman brought up a good point earlier about the parents and everything. You know, and that's, you know, I truly believe one of the major issues today with young people is a lack of a strong male father figure in their life, or a leader in their life, and you know, we just don't have it like we did when we were all younger. And you know, and based on, you know, what I've been doing with my criminal justice program, my inmate trustee program in the jail, you know, you have to find a substitute for that father figure, for that leader. And you know, one thing we have an abundance of that we don't take advantage of in Mississippi is churches. You know, you know, you get to put the government in charge of something, and something the councilman said too, you know, is that everybody looks at police officers, sheriffs, and other stuff. You know, you do this wrong, you do this wrong, you do this wrong. They want to nitpick you to death. When look, I'm a human being. I'm going to sin. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to make a mistake every day. You know, I promise you, I'm not going to make a right decision every day. I'm going to regret something that I did. You know, but I try to learn from those mistakes, just like these people out on the street. And that's why I really believe we need to invest more in our first-time nonviolent offenders. But, you know, we really need to start leaning on our churches, because that's the only asset that we have that can truly be everywhere, not only in the Jackson area, but all across the state. We have good people who actually really want to help. You know, we send missionaries all over the world and everything. We need missionaries right here in Rankin and Hinds County. All
right, well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. And when we come back, we are joined by Vicksburg Mayor George Flaggs. Welcome back to Mississippi Insight. Our next guest has led Vicksburg since 2013. But Mayor George Flaggs' career goes much further back than that. He spent much of it as a Democrat, but now identifies as an independent. He's unapologetic about his relationship with the leader of the Republican Party, sharing the stage a number of times with President Trump. Let's talk about your relationship with the president. You were in there earlier of the year when the Opportunity Zone conference there, and you met with President Trump. Trying to talk about your relationship with the president.
Well, first of all, I met the president right after the election. He was coming into Jackson for the opening of the Civil Rights Museum, and nobody seemed to want to greet him. And they called me and asked me would I greet the President of the United States to the state of Mississippi, and I said I'd be honored. And we've had a relationship ever since. And that's because I met 5 presidents. I've been with both Bush, Bill Clinton, and I was with Obama, and now I'm with the president. They come every 4 years, and if you're going to follow the money, you got to follow the president.
I know there's been a lot of controversy about whether you should be with the president or not. Did you think it was helpful or hurting your political career or not?
Well, I hadn't noticed any different, other than the fact that I'm an independent, and I'm an independent because of the fact is that most of the political leaders in the state of Mississippi, from the legislature, governor, lieutenant governor, are Republican. Most of the other local officials are Democrat, and I figured that if I could be an independent, I could be able to work with Democrats and Republicans. I think it's going real good. We are moving Vicksburg along. We've been probably the most progressive city in the state now. We're producing jobs. We created more jobs last year than any other municipality or county in the state. So I think it's working well. This is what I believe, Byron, is simple. You gotta, in order to create, you have to have a relationship to prosperity if you want to, and by networking. Democrat and Republican help you get elected, but Democrat and Republican don't help you stay elected. Good government helps you stay elected. You got to be able to work with people. I work with black, white, women, men, anybody. That's who I am, and that's who I'll always be. In fact, T.D. Jakes said, the minute you know who you are, you know who you're not.
Talk about the things that you are trying to accomplish, and where do you see Vicksburg, 4, 5, 6 years from now?
Well, first of all, Vicksburg has a $30 million budget. When I first got there, I took $3 million and put in reserve. I budget Vicksburg on 97% of the previous year budget, and the rest of the money come from federal or state government. Since I've been mayor of Vicksburg in the last 5 years, I've gotten over $40-some million from federal and state government. I just got $10 million from the legislature in the last 2 or 3 years. They said that we weren't going to be able to get money out of the BP. I got money out of the BP. In fact, I got $2 million out of the BP. You got to have a relationship, and just so happened, the Speaker of the House is Republican, the Lieutenant Governor is Republican, and the Governor is Republican. So what do? The Democrats don't have no money. We had it when I was there. Of course, I was a Democrat then, and I was on the budget committee. But now you have to do it. I'm a chess player. I don't play Uno, and I don't play checkers. I play chess. I'm going to follow the king.
So the important thing is to get the money to do the things you have to do.
Absolutely. You got to have money to be able to develop and to be able to enhance your economy. I don't raise taxes. If you want somebody to raise taxes, I'm not your guy. I'm a guy that believe in paying as we go and paying within your means. I've raised minimum wage in the city of Vicksburg twice, getting ready to raise it again. Of course, I'm going to raise my salary with it, but it all comes with the territory. You get what you pay for.
Talk about how you're going about fighting crime in the city of Vicksburg, because crime has been an issue around much of Mississippi. How are you going about fighting crime?
The best way you can fight crime is, one, through prevention. You got to have preventive programs. The other is community policing. We get in the community, get to know everybody, and then makes people comfortable with calling 911 when something happens. We've had our share of crime, but at the same time, is that I'm zero tolerance in crime, and my police chief know it, the police department know it, and at the same time we get out there and we fight it heads on. And now we have begun to educate the public on, if you see something, say something. We're bought into the camera system. We have the body cameras, and we have 2 mobile cameras, and I got two more on their way. If you we got the cameras in neighborhoods, high crime neighborhoods, we'll watch. It's just one more tool or more tools for police officers to use to monitor crime. So that's what we do. It's a combination of things. I don't think it's just on one thing fit all. You have to stay on top of crime. And if you got one homicide, you got one too many in your community.
You said you do it your way, and one of the things you did was on social media. You kind of cracked down on social media and how you talk to people. Why did you do that, and explain your efforts to crack down on how you're using social media?
If I ever had a learning experience, it's through social media. I've learned that social media is a good way to communicate with your community. It's a good way to communicate with, and a good way to network. So what I try to do is convey policy through networking, through by utilizing the social media and any media necessary, so that people understand that we're serious about what we're doing and stay on top of it. I think you have to have great relationship, and you have to have a direct means of communicating. And social media is one of those ways. I never thought I'd be involved in it, but I'm here, and it's very effective.
All right, Mayor George Flaggs, Vicksburg, doing it your way and being very effective at that. And we'll be right back with more after this. And welcome back to Mississippi Insight. The search is on for the next person to attempt to tackle Jackson's growing juvenile crime rate. WJTV 12's Gerald Harris joins us with the candidates for Hinds County District Attorney, who say they have the answer.
All 3 candidates for Hinds County District Attorney says there is a crime crisis in the capital city, and juveniles are becoming part of that problem. They all say they have a solution to fixing teen crime. Jackson City Council members and police chief have expressed their concerns with children committing crimes in the capital city. And voters will have a chance in August to vote for who they want to prosecute or prevent those crimes from happening. Darla Palmer, a defense attorney, says she will meet them in the classroom.
Do is first go into the school systems to give a lot of information, because you'll be surprised that a lot of the individuals that I have represented in the past are just not aware of what the penalties are, first of all. And so when you know better, you do better.
Civil rights attorney Jody Owen says children must have positive outlets to prevent violent crime.
All Hinds County School District, all city school districts, the Jackson Public Schools, which I have a track record of doing, and ensuring that we're keeping kids in school, and alternatively, when they must be removed from school, giving them things to do that are productive. We know that individuals are more likely to find themselves in Mississippi Department of Corrections custody when they drop out of school.
Bentley Alexander, an assistant attorney general, says there are programs in place to help, and he will reach to communities, including churches, to combat the problem.
I mentioned earlier, we have programs that we can use for juveniles, not only in the youth court, but also in circuit court. And while we do that, we also have to, at the same time, keep in mind the victims of those crimes that are perpetrated by juveniles with guns. But we have to change their behavior patterns.
Election day is August 6th, and in order to win, they must gain 50% plus one of the vote to avoid a runoff. Reporting in Jackson, Gerald Harris, WJTV 12.
All three candidates are running to fill the seat held by Robert Schuler Smith, now a Democratic candidate for governor. We'll be right back after this. Thanks again to Vicksburg Mayor George Flagg, Rankin County Sheriff Brian Bailey, Jackson City Councilman Aaron Banks, Gerald Harris, and to you for joining us. Tune in next Saturday night for another edition of Mississippi Insight, including a holiday weekend special story. Walt Grayson looks at a forgotten unit from the Civil War. Remember, news, weather, and sports are available 24/7 at WJTV.com on our news and weather apps. We'll be back next week. Until then, make it a good night.